Props and Locks on Fox 10 is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome into Props and Locks presented by FanDuel. I'm Sierra Santos. A record number of wagers were placed on the Super Bowl, and now we set our sights on the next biggest event in the sports betting world, the NCAA tournament. Luckily, we have our betting bestie to navigate us through some of the key futures bets you can make right now. Let's welcome in Ben Stevens, host of the Morning After on Sports Grid. And Ben, why do you look forward to March Madness every single year?
Because it is the best thing on planet Earth. There is nothing better than the March Madness. I love football. College football is my favorite sport. The Super Bowl was fantastic. And like Sierra mentioned, record-setting wagers on that Super Bowl Sunday. But the madness in the month of March for the big dance, the Cinderella stories, all the memories we create, one shining moment. Need I say more? It is the best thing to ever happen to all of us.
Okay, be honest. How many brackets do you fill out?
Only two. I like to focus and be specific. So I'll do two brackets and I'll switch it up a little bit based on a couple of games in the early rounds. But my Elite Eight and Final Four generally look pretty similar. Who knows if it's successful?
Look, he just shared his tactics with everyone out there. Okay, one way to avoid getting your bracket busted in the first round is putting your money on who makes it to the Final Four. And right now, Gonzaga is at -115, Arizona +160. Then around the Pac-12, UCLA +650, USC +2,000. It seems like Arizona, though, might be the best bet.
It's very interesting, Sierra, to see any team, and Gonzaga is deserving of this price, but to see any team in minus money favored to make the Final Four. It's called March Madness for a reason, because it is always hectic. The value on Arizona is certainly there, Sierra, and because we got the early reveal of the selection committee this past Saturday, one seeds performed pretty well based on that early reveal, and Arizona's number is getting shorter and shorter by the week. This might be your time to jump in on the Wildcats.
Okay, let's talk about that, because the programs with the best odds to have their one shining moment, the perennial big dogs. Let's take a look. So the Zags +380. The Wildcats +750, Kansas +1,200, UCLA +2,800. Mind you, I always pick Kansas to win the tournament. It never happens, man, so I'm not even going to look at that.
I mean, KU, though, this year, Sierra, has the makeup of a tournament team that you would want to be successful. Ochai Agbaji, one of the best guards in the country, probably the Big 12 Player of the Year, paired with one of the biggest men of all big men in college basketball in David McCormick as well. Down low for the Jayhawks, they are playing their best basketball right now. They've won 4 straight. They've covered in 3 straight, a huge game on the road in Waco this weekend against Baylor, though, will show if KU is worth that 12-1 price.
The Jayhawks always bust my bracket. All right, from college hoops to the NBA. The Suns got their first win under their belt without Chris Paul as he's mending that injured hand. They have the same odds as the Warriors to win the West at +170. The Jazz +550 and the Lakers +1,900. But you have to think the odds makers are thinking a little bit ahead by putting the Warriors and the Suns at both +170 to kind of even the playing field a little bit. Am I right?
You are very, very much right, because the Suns have not garnered a ton of respect in the futures market, especially in the Western Conference all year, Sierra, and they were the Western Conference champions a year ago. In the preseason, the 5th shortest price at +850. Finally now a co-favorite, but after the Chris Paul news on All-Star Weekend, moved back to be that co-favorite with the Warriors. That is a postseason price, not a regular season price, because I believe even without the point guard, Phoenix will be the #1 seed in the Western Conference playoffs and by probably a pretty hefty margin.
It's going to be really tough for Golden State to catch up. Okay, let's go to the East, a much more competitive landscape. The reigning champs are still the favorite at +270. The Bucks, the Nuts +300, the 76ers +400, and the Bulls +1,500. I have to imagine that blockbuster trade really shook up this market.
It certainly did. The 76ers price getting shorter and shorter. The Nets really didn't move though, Sierra. And it was interesting because the Nets have been the favorite in the Eastern Conference all year long. Their odds have only gotten worse since that blockbuster trade. When was the last time a favorite to win anything in the NBA makes a blockbuster trade and has the market work against them. But this goes to your Chicago ties, Sierra Santos. I am seeing red. The value on the Chicago Bulls at 15-1 is very, very juicy.
Oh, I love it. All right, we've only scratched the surface on NBA futures. After the break, we look at MVP, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. We're back in just a few.
Welcome back to Props and Locks, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook.
We're back on Props and Locks, and it's all about the futures here on this segment. And when the NBA season comes to a close, the individual accolades are doled out. Our MVP, Ben Stevens, is on hand to help us out. And Ben, who is your most valuable pick when it comes to the MVP market?
I'm just flattered I was called your MVP. That means the world to me. A name you do not see there. DeMar DeRozan at 10-1 for the Chicago Bulls on a historic trend right now. 8 straight games, scoring 35 or more points while shooting 50% or better from the floor. It is an NBA record, moving past Wilt Chamberlain. If the Chicago Bulls can stay atop the Eastern Conference, look out for that price. I would also throw in Devin Booker at 22-1, because if he leads the Phoenix Suns to that top spot in the Western Conference playoffs, D-Book certainly has some value, and that price of plus 2,200 only getting shorter. But if the Sixers win the East, it'll be Joel Embiid, but that's not as fun to say because it's the shortest price of plus 145.
And you have to imagine that the play of Book down the stretch without CP3 is going to factor into that as well. All right, for Rookie of the Year, odds makers heavily favor the Cavs' Evan Mobley at minus 500. But could we make a case for any of the other rooks who have plus many, maybe even the #1 overall pick in last year's draft, and Cade Cunningham?
No, you cannot, because when the odds makers make this line as heavily favored in Evan Mobley's stance as it is at minus 500, it's almost an indication the award is already wrapped up. Josh Giddey from Down Under has been fantastic, entered the All-Star break with 3 straight triple-doubles for the Oklahoma City Thunder, but the award is Evan Mobley's at this point.
Okay, I'm going to read between the lines and say that you're not putting any money on the Rookie of the Year odds. All right, so when it comes to Defensive Player of the Year, the Warriors' Draymond Green has fallen a little bit because of his injury, and we had to include the Valley's Defensive Player of the Year in our minds, and Mikal Bridges, who was a dark horse at plus 1,500. But, Ben, how safe is it to take Rudy Gobert at plus 105?
It's almost interesting, though, Sierra, because at this point of the year, if there's a clear front runner, and the price on Rudy Gobert is a front runner favored price, but if there's a clear front runner like we saw for Rookie of the Year or even Most Improved Player of the Year for Ja Morant, it'll be heavily minus money. I don't think the book or the voters want to follow the narrative of giving this award to Rudy Gobert again, but they might have to. Is Mikal Bridges worth it at 15-1? No, but if you love Villanova and you love the Phoenix Suns, might as well sprinkle on it.
Yeah, we always got to root for the hometown heroes. Come on. All right. So maybe our friends out there are new to betting basketball. Perhaps it may be your first time putting money on the big dance. We'll guide you through the steps and give you your tips in our final segment.
Welcome back to Props and Locks, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook.
As always, thanks for staying up late with us on Props and Locks. And sports betting, it's still new to Arizona, and a ton of fans got their feet wet with football. Thankfully, we have someone who has been doing this for a while, and Ben marches right around the corner. So we wanted to get your tips on how to bet on the big dance.
It is going to be a very exciting time. Do not blink, because February is almost over. Tuesday is March 1st. Set your alarms right now. So let's run through some of the ways to try to beat the bracket overall in how you approach things, or on a game-by-game basis. Let's start with our over-under totals, because you might see a high-scoring team or a team that plays good defense and think you should pick an over for a big offensive team or an under for a good defensive team. Always know the pace and the tempo that team plays off. That play plays a huge part of what happens in the totals. Number 1 seeds are number 1 seeds for a reason. It is easy to say, but Sierra, since 1985, in the 36 tournaments we have seen since the field expanded, 23 of the 36 national champions have been a number 1 seed. I know the madness is fun, but the chalk wins at the end. And then always live bet, because if you have a heavy favorite, like a number 2 seed against a number 15 seed, and it's close in the first half, they generally come back in the second half to rally and cover numbers, and you can get a much better number in live wagering opportunities than maybe before the game gets underway.
I love it. My man's out here telling people to live bet. I tell people to do the same. All right, as always, check the FanDuel app for the latest lines. We are back at 10:45 next Friday night. And until next week, take it easy.